record as well. Perfect. Look at that. So we have people coming in. Give everyone a bit of time to join us. If you're joining, thanks for joining us. Welcome, evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day. Yeah, these are the times when I still need to get on my music game and be prepped to play like a song. Every single panel I've been saying this, and you'd think by now I'd get it, but I'm not there yet, guys. So last month, we had someone sing a song. Does anyone want to sing us a song? No. Just putting you guys on pressure.
I'm always happy to sing a song.
Okay.
Welcome, welcome,
yeah.
Welcome everybody. Hey,
yeah.
Welcome,
yeah.
Welcome everybody. Dun, dun.
Okay, KB, that was pretty
good. Thank you. Welcome everybody.
Hey, okay, I love it. That's a good start. KB's given us some energy to start with, So I'm gonna go ahead. We've got people coming in, which is amazing. As everyone continues to fill in, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for this conversation. And I'll just get started. My name is Sandra Waidaka, Program Manager at the Global Good Fund, and it's a pleasure to have you all here. So just a couple of housekeeping. So everyone feel free to definitely use the chat if you want to say hello to anyone, or use the Q&A if you have any questions. We will be answering questions. However, we will either answer questions throughout or at the end. So please keep a hold on any kind of questions that come up in conversation. We have someone on our team at the Global Good Fund kind of monitoring. So if we miss out on anything, they will be there to pay attention. So that's the housekeeping. I guess I'll get started with our amazing panelists. What I'd love is for everyone to kind of introduce yourself and share a bit about your work, and then I'll hop into questions. I'm happy to take volunteers. Who would like to start? KB already did singing, so we need someone else, guys. Someone else. Bhavesh, Jessica.
Sure.
Okay.
So, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Bhavesh Narayani. I'm from India. I'm a 2024 Global Good Fund Fellow. I'm a co-founder of Solinas Integrity. So Solinas is IIT Madras-based startup where we develop robotics and AI solutions for managing water and sanitation assets. When I say water and sanitation assets, it means the pipeline, septic tanks, and manholes. So traditionally in India, these things are done manually, and we are bringing automation and mechanization in the sanitation sector, by which we can eliminate the manual interventions in the sanitation sector. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much, Bhavesh. We'll have more questions about your amazing work shortly. Who would like to go next? Okay, Jess, go ahead.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Schreiber. I'm the founder and CEO of FabScrap. FabScrap is a nonprofit based in New York City, and we work with the fashion industry to collect unused and unwanted fabrics from the design process. And then we recycle or redistribute them. And so I think everyone's really familiar with thrift stores for used clothing. This is the raw materials version of that. When we get small pieces, they become insulation, carpet padding, mattress stuffing. But when we get usable fabrics, leather, yarn, trims, we have a fabric thrift store that supports creative communities in the US. We work with about 800 fashion companies now.
Wow, love that, Jess. Very, very exciting. Can't wait to hear more about FabScrap. And last but not least, Kaveto, please go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is KV. I'm an artist, a Global Good Fund Fellow 2020, Echoing Green Fellow, and also the CEO and founder of Flash. And Flash is really on a mission to accelerate the adoption of eco-toilets in Namibia for healthier communities. And usually when I tell people about my work, they want to put us in a box of just building toilets. But for us, this is work that is closely linked to the question of race, gender, and restoring the dignity of thousands of people. So I'm super happy to be part of this panel to rethink environmental waste. So thank you.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Jess, KV, and Bhavesh for being with us today. I'd love to kick it off kind of like with, a first question, and it's more along the lines of knowing your passions. Is there a personal reason that you all decided to do the work that you're doing? You finished school, maybe not, I don't know, no judgment. You did whatever, and then you decided this is what you want to do. What was kind of the personal motivation? I'd love to hear. And since we started with Bhavesh, I'd love to actually start with KV, and then we'll go to Jess and then Bhavesh.
Yeah, no, I love talking about this story for me because it's deeply personal. I finished my uni study, and after a very long time of living in a city, I decided to travel back to my home village to visit my grandmother. And in our tradition, it's customary that when the grandson returns back to the village after a long time, they prepare a feast to welcome me back. And we were singing, eating, drinking, and dancing, really having a good time. And right before sunset, my grandmother said to me, Kaveto Tjatjara, which means Kaveto, stop eating now, or else you'll have to use the bush. And I'm a city boy now, so I decided no ways am I going to use the bush as a toilet. So I decided to hold it in the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I took a bus to the closest city, which was an hour away, so I could use a toilet. So it was a deeply personal problem that I experienced. But while I was there, I also saw my grandmother walk 1 kilometer for her to find some privacy in a bush to defecate behind. And that was my moment of obligation to try and solve this problem.
Wow. First of all, KV, just to respond, I think a lot of us take for granted the fact that we have toilets. Just speaking from my perspective and my point of view here. So I think it's amazing to be in a place where you realize you don't and realize what people go through and have to and see that as a way to kind of make a difference. So I really applaud, and I take for granted my toilet now. I think I'll go say thank you to my toilet a bit more often, just putting it out there. Jess, I'd love to hear from you. Kind of how was, fashion? What was the pulling? What led you there?
I think I should first clarify that my background is not in fashion. My background is waste management, and so it's kind of by accident that I now work in fashion. I started in waste management in New York City's Department of Sanitation, and I started there when they were launching their clothing recycling program, and so that's where I learned how much trash fashion actually creates. And what I found really interesting was that as individuals, we have a lot of recycling rules and regulations, and we feel an urge to donate our clothing instead of throw it away. But there wasn't the same accountability or responsibility or even feelings of guilt from the corporate side. And I know that corporations create up to 40 times more waste than individuals. And so I think holding some of these companies who are polluters all over the world more accountable for their waste, even if it's just this one small part of the supply chain, that's what really spoke to me about what we were doing at FabScrap.
Thanks so much. And thanks for clarifying, Jess. Waste management. We're clearly all in a waste business here and somehow. And finally, Bhavesh, we'd love to hear a bit more about what led you to Solinas and your mission.
Yeah, so my journey started from school days when I used to go to school by a walk. Then I used to see that in India, septic tanks and manholes were cleaning manually. And in the roads, we were able to see the human waste and all these things. On the other hand, there was a second story also that inspired me. One day, when my mother was filling the water in a tap, we received a sewer water in a tap. At that time, I was not knowing the reason how the sewer water is mixing with water. And I was not knowing that why actually, this manholes or septic tanks are cleaned manually. Later, when I grown up and educated in the technical side, I did my master's in robotics and cleaning mechanism. That time I understood that now I'm educated, I'm aware about what exactly is the problem. Can we solve this problem through technology? I always like to think, what can I give? So, and it's a better for a technology person, how this technology can help humans to make their life better. So then we started this journey making some small smart solution machines where we can help the Safai Karamcharis, manual scavengers, to reduce their manual effort. Instead, they can use machines to clean septic tanks and sewer lines. So yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. From the mind of technology to robots to obviously kind of being in the right place at the right time, Jess, and KV, seeing a need. You've all kind of had different ways that have led you to what you're doing so far, which is amazing. You know, it's what I love about social entrepreneurs. You guys, you take what you're doing and somehow in the end, you end up doing something that's impacting and creating a lot of change for a lot of people. Great. So let's kind of go into then, and let's kind of start with you, Bhavesh, is like, how would you say, you know, what you're doing with Solinas and kind of like the robotics and the technology you've come up with, how would you say that your business is in some way either combating climate change or creating change that is impactful for people, the people that were working within those septic tanks and the manholes in India in particular? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so when I started journey, so climate and all this thing was not there in my mind. I just started journey to solve the problems. But while working, I will just share my story. So one of the story, I visited one of the village of India. Its name is Bihar. And then one of the cleaning workers took me at the site how actually water lines and sewer lines are quite close. Even one leak can mix the water and sewer lines, and that can, what the water we are drinking, that can be water to wastewater, we don't know, and that can really impact the health of humans. It's not only the problem of cleaning worker, it's a problem of every individual who is living in this country, globally, or whatever. So then I really understood how the problem is very big. It's not only cleaning, it's more towards, human, social, and climatic problem. You just consider the condition when there is a flooding in any city. This drainage system, entire thing get filled and sewer starts overflowing, and then it affects the human health and as well as the climate. Improper management of human waste and all this thing can also pollute the water bodies, soils, and air pollutions can also be one of the reasons for that. So this is what I realized, and today we have deployed more than 25 robots and 30 inspection robots. We are saving 600,000 liters of water every day by doing a proper inspection and management of water and sanitation assets. And in India, 75 million tanks are cleaned manually. Currently, our robots is cleaning 100 robots, 100 septic tank and manhole every day. This is increasing the 4x returns of the Safai workers, cleaning workers, and also empowering them to use machine. And itself, we have also helped them to make their own enterprises. We have empowered the women to make their own enterprises to clean the septic tank and manholes so that these climatic actions can be further reduced. And one of the good thing is that in India, 400 people are dying every year by cleaning manholes and septic tanks. We are on a mission that in coming 10 to 15 years, how we can reduce these numbers so that we can have a sustainable solution as well as healthy society.
That's really amazing, Bhavesh. I think a lot of us, you know, don't really sit and think about, one, who's cleaning the waste that we're all just kind of, you know, eating and putting in our bodies, and but two, also like how it's being managed, you know, and how that process is affecting our environment and our climate in so many ways. On the same kind of trajectory, KV, obviously, you know, you're now with the eco toilets, you're really like giving access to sanitation to communities that maybe never had it before. I'd love to hear from you how you think your solution, your business is really combating and kind of fighting those challenges that you're having right now.
With regards to climate change, or
with regards to climate change, sanitation, you know, obviously what you're doing is pretty important.
Yeah, sure. No, climate change has been like at the forefront of our work the last 4 years. And if anyone has ever traveled to Namibia, you know that Namibia is like a desert country. So over the last 4 years, Namibia has been seeing an increasing number of droughts. And well, with droughts, that means there's less water. Now, the toilets that you and I have need water for them to work. So the work that we're doing at Flash is not only combating like climate change, but we build innovative waterless toilets. So that means we're also increasing the resilience of people in underserved communities. Because if they get to use these waterless toilets when there are droughts, well, you can still use a waterless toilet. So that's how we actually, in terms of not only combating climate change by building waterless toilets, but we're also increasing the resilience of people in underserved communities. with our solution.
I love that. Waterless toilets. This sounds like a really good solution for a lot of these places where we waste water on a regular basis. Sounds quite important. Water seems to be a big factor, both with your, your organization, Bhavesh, and Kaveto, your kind of point and purpose. Jess, I'm sure water is a huge factor in kind of like the the fashion industry, as well as like just fashion production. So I'd love to hear from you, both with what you're doing with FabScrap and like your background with waste, how you feel like you're really combating climate change within your space.
Yeah, I think the main way that we're addressing climate change is when materials are made, it's so intense on the environment that for them to be made and end up in landfill is quite depressing, actually. And so FabScrap allows those materials to kind of be more honored and recognized and have a useful life and extend their life as much as possible. So even in our recycling stream, it's not necessarily fabric back into fabric, but by downcycling these materials into insulation or carpet padding, we work a lot with the automotive industry. Their useful life is now decades of time that those fibers have some important use. And then with the usable fabrics, we dug into some research, old research, because there's not that much that happens on the pre-consumer side. But for every 10 pounds of fabric that we save from landfill, it has the same CO2 reducing equivalent as planting a tree. So that's something we share with our customers to let them know, like, by buying something that already exists instead of creating new virgin fabrics, there really is like an important CO2 mitigation element in what you're doing. And I think most of that CO2 savings comes from the fact that we're not needing to make that yard or make that hide or that yarn. And really, there's an intense process with cotton and its use of water. But even with the synthetic fabrics like polyester, I don't think most people realize polyester is oil. Like, it's crude oil and that's how it's made, and you're wearing plastic. And so even the polyester is really intense on the environment. And so by using what has already been made, what already exists, we save some of that virgin material from being created and extracted.
Wow. Okay. The part about polyester being oil, I'm now looking at all my clothes and thinking, damn, like, you're telling me I'm wearing a coat of oil. Okay. All right. That's crazy. But no, I think there's a lot of things, and what I really love about our conversation today is a lot of things that we don't think about, but that we do naturally, right? Like a lot of like using toilets. Who cleans our toilets? Who cleans the water? Clothes, like, I think, and Jess, this is another question for you. Obviously, we are in a time where I think globally, fast fashion is popular. Like I can go on my phone right now and have 6 to 7 apps of like different places where I get my clothes, and I imagine that as this continues, a lot of these companies have a phenomenon of overproduction, right? So my question for you is, how does this phenomenon of overproduction in the fashion industry contribute to textile waste and excess inventory? And how does FabScrap work to combat this, right? Working with 800 brands is crazy. You've got to have a lot of material. I've seen photos of your warehouses. How are you guys working on combating this overproduction kind of phenomenon? And what can we as citizens who are buying in or, being part of the fast fashion really help your work out a bit more?
Sure. I mean, that's a huge question to answer, but I'll start by saying one of the ways that we kind of hold brands more accountable is the same way that they pay for trash pickup or paper recycling or metal, glass, and plastic recycling. We charge them for their textile recycling. And I think it's really important that over purchasing starts to hit their bottom line as waste. And it's not just given away for free. It's not just externalized costs. So at least on the design side, we're trying to make this be part of their budget in a meaningful way. I mean, obviously we provide data that they can use and market, so it's not the equivalent to landfill, that they're definitely paying more to recycle it. But I think the other piece of that is that that's where policy becomes really important, because as a consumer, so much about our options when we're done with a product are actually design decisions. So when I'm done with something, if it can be deconstructed into recyclable parts, if its original materials were recyclable or reusable, if it's repairable, all design decisions. And so I think there's a type of policy called extended producer responsibility that says that people who produce products have some responsibility for the life of that product, even past point of sale. And that has come about through electronics, through paint, through medications, because those things affect the waterways when they go into landfill, and they become society's problem because consumers are done with them. It becomes the city or state's or government's job to deal with it. And so extended producer responsibility, and there's policy now for that in fashion, I think is part of what will address some of the overproduction. I have one more insane stat to share, and then I'll lend the mic. But I heard that prior to COVID, companies considered like 15 to 20% return kind of a bad return rate for an item. Now companies produce knowing that about 50% or more will be returned. And then most returns are not put back on the shelf. And so the expectation is that a lot of what is made is not even going to be used or will be returned and discarded. And that, I think, is the practice that we really have to address as consumers, not ordering and returning so much, being more thoughtful about our purchases. But then for the brands, some of that overproduction right now is really because of the ease of return.
Wow, 50%. Dang. I just thought about how much I bought in return. But yeah, that's a good point, Jess. That's for everyone here. Y'all heard it from the design perspective. No, Jess, it's important to own your voice. You're telling us a very good point that I think a lot of us don't think about, which is why we're buying things, apart from excess. Great. So I'd love to now go to talking about another type of excess, which is human waste, right? And I think all of us, it's a natural thing for all of us to go to the bathroom, and it's healthy for all of us to go to the bathroom. Is the normal holding it in like KV did for 2 to 3 days that's not healthy, putting it out there. But Bhavesh, what really struck me about your work, Solveness Integrity, is really the part where you're kind of bringing dignity back to the people that are going and cleaning these septic tanks, these men. So I'd love to ask you, before your solution existed, how does the disposal of human waste impact health and the environment, especially if it's not done properly? I'd love to hear from you, Bhavesh.
Yeah, so first part was if you have to clean septic tank and manhole human waste, you can either do manually. Before our solution, it was done manually, and you can clean it either manually or through some mechanized way. But challenges come once you cleaned it, where you will put it. So some people put on just roads in India, some people put in some agriculture land, or some people just put in the water bodies, rivers, lakes, ponds, and all these things. Now you can imagine the scale of damage this waste can do. If you are putting in the roads, the normal humans which are moving here and there, I have seen the people are putting the lag in the human waste because the human waste are on the roads. This kind of situation can arise. Second is if this waste is going in the water bodies, it affects the aquatic environment, aquatic animals, and all these things. If it goes to the soil, the food and grains can be impacted for a long term. So these are one of the segment, like your air pollution, water bodies, soil bodies can get affected. Second is the human health perspective. The cleaning workers who are cleaning the manholes and septic tanks, it's very dangerous. I will say it's the well of death, where human dies while cleaning other human shit. That is the shit show happens. So why it happens? First thing is this human waste consists of pathogens, which consists of again of bacteria and viruses that can affect the human skins and can become the reason of a lot of deaths. Other factor is the gases that is present inside the manholes and septic tank. 3 main gases are present, which is methane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. That is very dangerous for human health. Due to this reason in India, I mentioned last time that 200 to 300 people are dying just because of the gases accumulation and all this. So now I have explained you the two perspectives, how actually it is affecting the environment and how actually it's affecting the cleaning worker as well as the human lives.
Wow, that's scary to think about, because I think we really don't sit and think past flushing the toilet. You know what I mean? So I think that's quite amazing and sad to hear at the same time. So then, in that kind of way, Bhavesh, I'd love to hear how Solinus Integrity is combating that, right? What is it about your robots that are giving people their lives back, that's taking away those kind of like points of concern for the people that are doing this kind of work? I'd love to hear a bit more.
Yeah, so before I was naming it as a human waste, but later working this project, I realized that it's a human value actually. It's not a waste. If you properly manage this waste, it's none of the value you will find in any of the goods that raw material that happens in this earth or exist in this earth. This waste can become fertilizer for the agricultural land. This same waste can become the construction materials for these construction industries. And the wastewater can be recycled and you can again use in the toilets and use in the agricultural lands and all this. So this is the first thing that I've learned from this. Then we started understanding how Solinas can bring a change or impact in this sector. We realized that this accumulation of sludge or accumulation of human waste is a major problem. There is no pump exist in the earth which can actually suck the hard human waste. Due to this reason, humans are actually entering inside to clean it. If we can address that challenge through the mechanized and robotic way, then there is no need to human to enter, first of all, inside any kind of manuals or septic. So then we started studying the behavior of human waste, how human waste behaves, what is the density, what is the viscosity, what is its properties, when it can break, what are the RPM we need to make it break. That kind of rheological study we did in our laboratory. And as per that, then we started studying different kind of mechanism exist in the earth by which we can break the hard sludge. Then I came to learn about the mixer we have, right? If we have to crush any vegetables and all this thing, we use a small mixer or juicers. So same thing we used and make it compacted and use inside manholes and septic tank to crush the hard human waste into a soft particles. And then we have integrated this mechanism with a suction system. So once you have break the hard particle, then you suck it, store it, and take it to the treatment facilities. So this is the kind of change Solinas has brought actually. And the other change we brought is actually these are managed by the government and cleaning workers are actually cleaning it. They don't care about whether you're cleaning manually or by machine. They care about how their wages or income will increase. So then we started thinking of economic wise, how it can helpful for the small cleaning workers. We visited in India, all the cleaning site. We realized that generally cleaning happens at night because manual cleaning is illegal in India from 2013. But because of miss of affordable technology, still this practice is in the field. So then as it is happening at night, so they can clean only one tank in one day. They can earn only 2,000 rupees in one day. We targeted that segment. This was the gap. If we can make the cleaning in the daytime, morning, night, then we can increase their wages by 4x times. So that's why we brought machines and given an awareness about how this machine can actually help them to increase their wages, because they don't care about whether you're cleaning manually or this, but we are giving them money in their pocket that you can also become entrepreneur. We will help you to initially get some funding or some subsidies from the government to make your own enterprise to procure these machines, and then you increase your wages and bring a great change. Like this, we have, I think, registered 5 separate non-profit organizations, and the owners are individual women whose husband died while cleaning septic tank and manholes. So we have empowered them to register separate enterprise, given a machine to them, and now they are cleaning manhole, septic tank. They have increased their daily wages as well as number of tank of cleaning, as frequency of cleaning has also increased.
I feel like your solution really like gave a full view, which is important, I think, when you're thinking about like, how you want to impact the
Right.
world and how you're building solutions through making sure, everyone's covered. I think that's amazing. First of all, I learned so much about the fact that like we use a spinner type of thing. That's very,
Right.
very interesting. So I want to continue with our conversations, but we have some QAs from individuals here, and I want to make sure that I'm not missing out on kind of what people are asking. So there's someone who says, Cephas from Kenya says, I'm a startup consultant currently working for startups, and I'm helping them get finance from inside and currently outside Kenya. In Kenya, there are a lot of opportunities for circular economy. I have clients who have a lot of potential in making e-waste, plastic recycling, and organizing for organic fertilizers. Can any of you be of help? I think Cephas, I would like, if anyone would want to answer, if they would love to have a conversation with Cephas or would like to know more. Anyone can feel free. At the same time, Cephas, you can follow up with us at Global Good Fund. And I'm happy to connect you with an entrepreneur that might be able to give you a bit more perspective, especially in terms of being in Kenya. We have a lot of entrepreneurs who are based in Kenya as part of the Global Good Fund. Not a lot of them in waste. So just perhaps having a conversation with someone. They asked specifically to learn more about waste management from you. I think if you're fine with us sharing your email address.
Yeah, definitely. I worked now mostly in textiles and fashion, but I did work in New York City's e-waste recycling program and some of their metal, glass, and plastic work too. So I know a little bit and at least know volumes and operations around it, even if I'm not totally current on all the tech.
All good. Cephas will put in Jessica's information and actually everyone's email address here in LinkedIn. So those in the audience who'd like to connect with them can connect with them. We had someone who asked, I'd like to know what kind of qualifications and experiences they need to get the GGF Fellowship. Just to clarify, the GGF Fellowship it's not an award, it's a leadership development program that you go through for a year. Bhavesh is currently in our program and is going through coaching sessions. Jessica and Kaveto both experience our program. I'm happy to talk more about the fellowship in the future, but I will say you can apply for it. The applications will kick off in May. Larissa, if you can I believe that Larissa, who's part of our team, has been sending you all website information to subscribe for our newsletter, and you can get more information on the fellowship that way. Great. I'm going to caveat back into our questions. You got to give a bit of GGF and then move forward. Great. So I would love then, Kaveto, to talk to you. You're working on sanitation in a place, in any country, but I think specifically in, Namibia, in a place perhaps where, and the rural areas where sanitation is really more of an education than it is more of like a fix-it solution, right? It needs to be educated from the bottom kind of thing. What challenges and opportunities have you seen associated with implementing sanitation, these eco-toilets in Namibia? I'd love to hear a bit more about that, Kaveto.
Yeah, sure. Two of the main big challenges that we have experienced while implementing our solution in Namibia, one is working with government. So Namibia is a post-apartheid nation, and some of the problems that the government has been inherited from the apartheid regime. For example, the 1958 Separate Amenities Act, where the apartheid regime actually just denied the indigenous people access to toilet facilities. So there was a law that was placed in there. And now, to date, you have policy which says if you're going to build ablution facilities at schools, they have to be pit latrines. So that already makes it hard to allow alternative and sustainable technologies like ours if the policy just says pit latrines. And as we've been hearing, that pit latrines at the end are bad for the environment. You have to get this frogman to go in and basically take the waste out. So that's one of the challenges, is policy and working with government. And then the second big challenge is really like we're innovating a solution for people at the base of the pyramid. So they're also poor people sometimes, and trying to figure out who is actually going to pay for that. has been a challenge. And we believe that government is really responsible for making sure that people have access to basic services like sanitation. So we have been trying to work closely with local government and the Ministry of Education, but those two have been like some of the biggest challenges. And the opportunities that we've been seeing is some of the households, the people in this community are already paying for these facilities that we have. So there is already a willingness, and they also have some purchasing power. Just because someone is poor, you would be actually so amazed to find that these people have Samsung phones, they have mobile phones, but they don't have a toilet. So that has been like also the exciting opportunity that we've been seeing.
Wow. So it's been, I guess for you, Kaveto, it's been interesting thinking through your business model then, right? Because obviously the hope is that the government will be the ones who really proponents step in, but clearly there's a policy kind of lag. But then seeing the power of the individual consumer being important in this particular way. I think that's great. That's amazing. I think we often don't think a lot about, you know, and I've been saying it a lot, sanitation and kind of like the needs and clean hands and toilet until COVID probably, because when people were like, oh yeah, it's very important to wash your hands after you use the bathroom and before you eat, you know? So I think thinking through, especially, you know, Kaveto, thank you so much for sharing a bit about Namibia, because I did not know that policy still existed. That's a bit crazy. Namibian government don't come, but that's a bit crazy. So hearing it from your perspective is really quite important. Great. So let's now talk around kind of like, you know, Jess, you are in this place where you have 800 brand companies that are working with you, that are kind of like giving their time to Fab Scrap. And, you know, this being Earth Month, the most busy month ever. For all of you who don't know, Fab Scrap is currently fundraising, and they're looking to hit a goal of 10,000 US, and they're almost at 7,000. So feel free to take a look at their website. Just putting a plug there. But Jess, I'd love to hear from you. How do you think, or what do you envision the continuing evolution of Fab Scrap looks like as an organization, and then also in the fight for climate change, where we're feeling the impacts today? I don't think anyone's in denial that spring took a bit of time to come, and I'm still not sure spring is here fully. How do you feel like Fab Scrap's kind of role will keep playing in as we continue on our fight for climate change? I'd love to hear.
Thanks for the little fundraising shout out. We're different from most nonprofits in that we're about like 80% self-funded between service fees and fabric sales. But we do write grants and fundraise from when we need moments of growth. And that's because maybe as a surprise to nobody, most fashion companies do not pay their invoices on time. And because a lot of times we have to perform the services before we can get paid. And the demand for our services right now is so great. We've really never been in the position where we've had to cold call brands to sign up for service. It's just as more people hear about us, they recognize the problem and want to sign up. But that means that we sometimes have to front quite a bit, which sounds like you guys can relate to. We have to front quite a bit to be able to provide that volume of service before we see any of the income from it. And so moments of fundraising like Earth Month really help us do that. We just this year got our first baler. So I think everyone's familiar with bales of hay. We are now creating bales of fabric that go to our shredder, which is huge. It means that we can fill the trucks that we send to the shredder vertically and not just across the floor. We can actually like stack up, which means we can send more at a time, more efficiently, saves us money, saves us the CO2 from all of that transportation. So I think over time, our operations have continued to get more and more streamlined and look more and more like a true commodities processor, like a plastic recycler, et cetera. So I'm hoping to see more of that continue. We'd love to open on the West Coast. I think globally, there's a lot of places where there's a hub of corporate design and a creative community that need to be connected and share resources. And anywhere where that happens, I'm thinking London, there's been a lot of interest in Sydney, Milan, Paris, a lot of interest in Canada. Anywhere where that exists, I think someone local could start a fab scrap. Because they're gonna know their operations best, their communities best, and how to connect everything best. And so I think that's something that I've always thought is possible long term. And then, like I said, the policy piece, really important to us as that starts to get introduced in the US. I also think it's important to recognize that we are recycling and reusing material, but we're not reducing the waste. We are not yet at the point where we are like solving the core problem. And so last year we received a grant to audit the materials we receive. And what we found is that 75% of it is packaging and swatches that mills send to brands to kind of showcase their new fabrics each season. And so what we want to do is take the audit of mill waste that we're seeing from brands and help mills share their fabrics in a new and more sustainable way to actually reduce the amount of waste that's created in that process, not just recycle and redistribute it. So we're trying to move past being just a Band-Aid on a problem and actually like treat the source of the ailment.
The source of the problem. I think you said, you know, 3 big words: recycle, reuse, and reduce. And reduce being the one that a lot of people have problems with, focusing environmentally wise, right? Like, so I think that makes a lot of sense, and that sounds really innovative. And please do let us know how that goes in terms of figuring out that piece of the mills, yes, and reducing it for real, for real. That's amazing. You know, Bhavesh, you've already talked about kind of like the different ways that human waste can be reused, right? Because obviously, I don't think there's a reduction of that per se, not unless people stop having babies, and we don't want that to happen. Please keep having beautiful, amazing children, you know. But obviously that means that like maybe there's innovative ways that we can think through the reduction of human waste. And I think both, you know, Kaveto with the eco toilet, the kind of materials, I'm curious about the materials that you're using to build. So let me go to Kaveto first and then Bhavesh. Kaveto, I'd love to hear about your eco toilet. Like, how did that come about, and what materials? Like, I'm genuinely curious. I'd love to hear a bit more about it, because that's clearly a reuse. It's eco. So you're taking
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I think one key thing that like we heard already is that instead of viewing it as a human waste, let's view it as a human resource. So the more of it that is out there, we can use this as fertilizer and stuff. So really changing our view from waste to resource is a key. And for our solution at Flush, one of the things that we wanted to do was to build a solution that is easy for people to use and easy for it to be replicated. So all the materials that we use are locally sourced, and we hire local artisans from the community who are building a solution from their lived experience. So they built this eco toilets. So imagine like a phone booth or one of those portable toilets, but it's beautifully designed. It's like the iPhone of toilets. So you want to build a product that not only that you give to poor people, but people like KV or Sandra in the city, they can hire out this eco toilet for festivals because they are also environmentally conscious people. So that's the kind of product that we're really building. So it's a product that can be used by everyone. And why? What's the benefit of having locally sourced materials to build it? If it breaks down, you don't have to wait to order materials from the US or China to try and fix it. Everything is available in Namibia. So that's a bit about our solution.
I love that. And I guess on that front, then I heard you mention festivals. And KV, not that this is your business talk central 101, but like, is that how you're thinking of, is that one of the markets you're thinking of kind of pitching to? Because there are a lot of festivals. We're thinking about California. Coachella just happened recently. And then there's all the other music festivals that happen both in the US, and I've been to some of them, and those porta potties were scary, you know, really scary to be in. So is that one of the customer bases you're thinking of as you continue, or are you more as a way to finance perhaps getting more of those in? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, the community events is definitely one of like our revenue models. So not only for music events or cultural festivals, but even for weddings, when people are getting married in the village, they have 200 or 500 people coming to celebrate, and they still need toilets over there for their guests. And this is one way to restore the dignity of your guests, but it also increases your status in the society that, hey, you have a toilet at your facility. So the events model is one way for us to generate revenue. But then if people in the communities have seen Sandra at Coachella using our eco toilets, they'll say, oh man, those toilets are cool. Bring them over here to our village. So it's also another way of like behavioral change initiative.
Yeah, no, I just thought of the Ugandan festival, you know, Nyege Nyege. I just thought of that as a good example of like, which for Jess and Bhavesh, it's this amazing festival in Uganda that happens that's like basically like a Coachella, but like for specific African artists. It's fantastic. I haven't been, but I've heard it's really cool. And thinking of Kenya and how many festivals we have during like the end of the year, like in Lamu and all of those things. Kaveto, we need to talk. Okay, great. I lost my train of thought once we started talking about festivals. Back to human resources. Let's call it human resources. Bhavesh, obviously, you know, you've kind of talked about the reuse part of the cycle with Solonus integrity. And I remember you mentioning that, you know, it's not only for human, you know, waste, but also for water. Can you tell us a bit more about kind of like that part that your technology plays in the water aspect environmentally? I'd love to hear a bit more.
Yeah, so till now I've talked more about sanitation side. We are also developing one more product, which is basically for doing the condition monitoring of the pipelines, either water pipelines or sewer pipelines. So what happens in India, suppose if there is even a single leak is there in the water pipeline, there is no such technology that is available that can inspect where actually the leak is and how big the leak is. What is the current solution is that they dig the roads and keep on digging the roads till they find the leak, because these all are underground structures.
Wow.
And in underground, your internet never works, your most of the technology never works. So how you will figure out where actually the leak is and how big the leak is? For that, we are developing crawler-based robot. This robot can go inside the water pipelines, and with the help of cameras and sensors, you can see in your mobile where actually the leak is and how big the leak is. And this robot can do the maintenance of that leak also. So data says that there is a $14 billion loss in water utilities because of just non-revenue or contamination of water in the pipelines. This loss can be saved if we can properly inspect it where actually the loss is happening and then properly maintain it for a long-term sustainable solution.
Wow. Bhavesh, I have another question. You know, what you're doing, I think, and I knew this from the first time we talked, is obviously, you know, expanding it to more places in India. But I can think of so many places in sub-Saharan Africa where, and I'm speaking, you know, specifically Kenya, because that's where I've grown up and that's home for me. I can see where your solution would be so beautifully needed. Have you ever, you know, just curious minds out there, is there any thoughts of partnership or expansion once you feel like you've done what you can do within the India region? I'd love to know.
Yeah, so we are open for doing partnership, global partnership and so, but we have just completed the product development 2 years back. And we generally believe if we can solve Indian problem, we can solve any problem in the globally. So we are in the large scale testing phase. And in parallel, we are also collaborating with some international organizations, for example, International Water Associations, ADB, Amazon H2O. These are some water international recognized groups. And I think in the future, Global Good Fund also. And then we will surely do a pilot first in the international to understand what are the international problems, how big is the market and so. And then we are open for deploying our solution globally as well.
Cool, cool. So you heard it here first, guys. We should all, you know, chip in and find out where Solonus integrity is going next. I think it's gonna be pretty big. KB, to me, it sounds like you and Bhavesh should really talk I think there's a connection here. This is what we love about Global Good Fund, is a chance to kind of talk about more. So I'm gonna kind of, we're at the 10-minute mark, so I'm gonna give us 1 to 2 more questions, and I'd love to both make them about, what we've talked about, which is, I think what's been amazing is you're all combating such human problems, just while people might think clothes are not, we don't think about where we get our clothes, we just often buy them, so you're, and thinking through that cycling of fabrics, as well as for fashion students, there's just so much you're doing in a big industry. KV, toilets, man, I don't even know where to begin. That's big, that a lot of us spend, at least if you're healthy, 4 to 5 minutes on there every day. And Bhavesh, I think you're combating the other end, which is like where our waste is going, how we're making this waste into a resource, how we're kind of shifting and changing things around. So I guess my final question for you guys is, what do you think me, the general human being, and I think Jess, you've kind of talked about a bit about this, so maybe KV and Bhavesh, what do you think that the general human being who's going to the toilet every day, who's wearing clothes, who's perhaps not really thinking through things, can be helpful to your causes? How can we make a couple of changes that can help make your work easier? You might not have an answer, which is totally okay. But if you do, I'd love to hear, KV or Bhavesh, where you think that the average Joe can contribute.
I think from the sanitation cleaning perspective, a normal person, what he can do, as we know that when our mobile data will get, discharged, we monthly charge it. We know that when our electric bill will be there every month, we pay EMI and all these things. Same way, we should also do the cleaning of septic tanks, sewer lines regularly, periodically, so that it should not become a big problem if we are not maintaining it for a long time. This is a major problem in India. We never maintain our assets timely, and then we suffer a big problem. And it's not only a man-made problem, it can be sometimes natural problem. Flood can become a big problem if we are not maintaining it. So what we can do is, like the same way we are maintaining other assets, we should also take sanitation that can be maintained and managed regularly.
Got it. Keep an eye on make sure your toilets, just keep an eye out. I like that. Okay. KV, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I like to think of it in 2 ways. If you're someone living in Washington, D.C., New York, or London, or wherever, I think the first part is to know that when you go to the toilet and you pee and poop, you're peeing and pooping in clean drinking water. That's like 7 or 8 liters of clean drinking water. Just think about it. Every time we use the toilet, it's clean drinking water that we're making dirty. It's clean, and then we go to make it dirty. Just think how wild that is. Okay. And maybe just changing first our mindset, because as we're seeing in my hometown in Urundu, you can live in a house where there's water running through, but there have been water cuts that have been happening more and more frequent. And when there's no water, your toilet is completely useless. So maybe let's just start thinking about like how precious water is, especially in countries like Namibia, where it's a desert country and water is such a precious and limited resource. And maybe the second more practical thing for someone, like maybe this advice to myself, in my hometown, it takes about 30 seconds or a minute for the hot water to start running when you're trying to take a shower. So you have to like open it and let it run. And like what we started doing is just putting a bucket in the shower. So when you're showering, you can take that water and you can still use it either to flush or to feed to water the plants, just small little things of how we can save the water that we have, and maybe get a waterless toilet just is another one. So
No.
but
I'm liking the sound of the waterless toilet. It's so funny. I did those things at my grandma's house, and it's because there was water cuts, and we really weren't thinking. And I used to think it was such a low-key backwards way, but thinking about it, it made a lot of sense to use water from the kitchen in the bathroom, like water that was dirty in the toilet, because it what else was its purpose? It was reusing and repurposing water. But I used to think it was such a crazy way of doing things. And so KB, that's a good point. That's a very good point. I love it. Okay. No, that's really good. Jess, is there anything else you want to add? Obviously, we now know that if you're wearing polyester, you're wearing oil. Any other tidbits you want to share with us? We'd love to hear.
Yeah, I would say choose natural fabrics when you can. I would definitely try and keep your clothing as long as possible, hand it down to other people. I have a baby now, so I'm always trying to find someone who has a baby like 6 months behind me or 6 months above me. Really reusing what exists. I also think ask brands questions. So often people like in a business will sign up for FabScrap because their customers want to know what steps are you taking towards sustainability? How are you trying to reduce your impact on the planet? How are you trying to improve your supply chain? And that's because their customers want to know and their customers want answers. And so sometimes it feels like it's not that important or that we don't have a voice or companies don't care, but I've seen the effects of people asking questions of the places where they shop, and it's meaningful.
I love that. I love that. Great. Ask questions, reuse, give out. Thrift stores are great, like you said, but also try and buy natural fabrics. I love that. I'm now thinking about my mom. My mom has an obsession with linen clothes, and she's an obsession with all natural things. So I think she'll really enjoy this conversation. And I can imagine the lecture I'm going to be getting when I order clothes where I shouldn't be. So noted. Great. So now I'd love to, there had already been a couple questions around the Global Good Fund Fellowship and kind of like a bit about the program. So we have about 3 minutes or so. And I guess my question for you guys is and this is for Jess and KB, and then Bhavesh, obviously you're in the fellowship, so a bit more recent. But Jess and KB, what did you find from the Global Good Fund program that you feel like you couldn't have found anywhere else while you were with us during the fellowship and as an alumni? I'd love to hear. Go ahead,
Sure. I will say this is I've done a few other fellowships as well, and this is one of the only fellowships that I've been part of that is really focused on the founder and the unique experience of the founder and support for the founder. And that was so meaningful to me because in other fellowships, it was how does your org grow? And what is this like investment going to do for your business? And you care so much about your business, you don't even think twice about it. But for your business to continue to grow, you have to do so much growth as an individual to lead the team, to lead the charge, to strategize about what's next, to think forward. And there's not always a lot of support for that. I also just found that it was a little isolating in that I didn't have any other entrepreneur friends who could understand the ways that I had to put certain things first or move in different ways or be the face of something that I wasn't always prepared to be the face of. And so finding people who had that shared experience, finding the support through Global Good Fund. In particular, I was a Global Good Fund fellow when I was pregnant, and I needed that support in that moment because it was very hard for me to not be able to perform as a founder the way that I'd been performing for the life of the org. I couldn't physically do it. Mentally, my head was in a different place, but to have the support of Global Good Fund to say like you matter as a person, not just in what you're producing in the world, but because if you're good, you can do better was really important for me in that time.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jess. KB.
Yeah, man, I agree with everything that Jess said. I was a Global Good Fund Fellow in 2020, and this was one of the first times I received an executive business coach really to work with me and really support my leadership journey for 12 months. And during 2020, I fell into a deep depression just because of how life was going. And my mentor, Bobby, just was showing up. I've never met this man before at the time. He just kept showing up, sending me WhatsApp messages, and he just cared for me as an individual, as a person. And that made a huge difference for me to bounce back and continue working on something that is deeply personal to me. So I'm eternally grateful for the Global Good Fund and this community. So thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much, KB, for sharing. And Bhavesh, obviously you are only like what? Yes, a couple months into the program, you have your coaching calls. You know, for you, what are you looking forward to the most once, you know, the program is, I guess so far, what have you felt has been amazing and what are you looking forward to? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so I joined this program to develop my leadership skills. And I was not clear initially how actually it will happen. But I'm very surprised at how Global Good Fund, very well way they structure everything. It starts from 360-degree assessment and they give you coach. And I was thinking that first day my coach will teach me what is leadership, but he took who I am actually and what I want to become. And what you are and what you want to become, it depends on your values. And then he focused on building my values and all these things. And obviously, I am also looking for some funding that Global Good Fund provides because it gives you a lot of freedom to explore various things. And yeah, so my expectation was to become a good leader. And for that, you need good leaders with you. And I'm having a Kevin as my coach as of now. And I thought that he will be only coach with me for 6 months, but he said that I'm your life coach. So that was a really good thing. So yeah.
Love that. Love that. So we, you know, I think one of my favorite things is often we find that with this program, you know, you start and you expect it to end, but the Global Good Fund community is ongoing, right? The support that you receive in many ways, both emotionally and through the coaches and mentors is lifelong due to the relationships you build. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I have learned so much. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us, Bhavesh. We know it's late. We appreciate you. Kaveto, your afternoon, and Jess giving us your, you know, your midday. We really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to everyone who stayed in for the conversation all throughout. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you to our amazing panelists, and I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day.
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.